First Contact's price. The hum of the TNS Hyperion's engines was barely noticeable after 3 months of deep space patrol, but Commander Elena Reyes could feel something was different today. She stood at the bridge's observation window, watching the strange particles of the Kuiper Belt drift past like cosmic snow. Humanity had pushed its boundaries far since the first colonies on Mars, but this was the furthest any human ship had ventured from Earth. "Commander," Lieutenant Hassan's voice cut through her thoughts. "We're picking up unusual energy signatures at bearing 047, Mark 223. Nothing like we've seen before." Reyes turned from the window, her dark eyes focusing on the sensor display. The reading looked almost like a solar flare, but they were too far from any star for that to make sense. Analysis. "It's some kind of quantum variance, Mom," Science Officer Raj Patel replied, his fingers dancing across his console. "The energy pattern is too regular to be natural. I'd stake my reputation on it being artificial." The bridge crew fell silent. After centuries of searching, could this be humanity's first contact with alien life? Reyes had trained for this moment, but the reality of it made her throat tight. "Show me," she ordered, and the main view screen lit up with a cascade of data. The energy signature pulsed with an almost musical rhythm, like a song written in quantum mechanics. Before she could order further analysis, another alert blared. "Multiple objects dropping out of something, Commander," Hassan reported. "It's not any FTL drive we know of." The view screen shifted, and Reyes felt her breath catch. Massive ships emerged from what looked like tears in space itself, their hulls gleaming with an impossible metal that seemed to absorb light. They were beautiful in a terrifying way, like deep-sea predators made of living crystal. But they weren't alone. Behind them, darker shapes emerged, angular vessels that seemed to drink in light rather than reflect it. And they were firing on the crystalline ships. "Energy weapons detected," Tactical Officer Yuki Tanaka reported, her voice steady despite the unprecedented situation. "The dark vessels are using some kind of gravitational weapons. They're tearing the crystal ships apart." Reyes watched as one of the crystal ships shattered, its crew presumably lost to the void. Her training kicked in, pushing aside the wonder and horror. "Battle stations. Lieutenant Hassan, can you isolate any communications?" "Yes, Mom." It's like music, Commander. Translating now." The bridge speakers came alive with a haunting melody that somehow carried desperate meaning. "To any who hear us, we are the Harmonious Collective. The Void Dominion follows their purpose of extinction. We cannot hold. Help us, or all light in this sector will die." Reyes didn't hesitate. Humanity had dreamed of first contact for generations, but no one had imagined it would come like this. "All hands, battle stations. Tanaka, arm all railguns and prepare missile tubes 1 through 20. Hassan, send an emergency burst transmission to Fleet Command. Tell them humanity just joined its first interstellar war. The crystal ship survivors are retreating to bearing 180 Mark 045. Paddle reported. "The dark vessels, the Void Dominion. They're pursuing. Our sensors indicate the crystalline vessels' hulls are failing under some kind of radiation assault." Reyes allowed herself a grim smile. "Radiation. Paddle, what's the radiation level in that combat zone?" "About 300 rads per hour, Commander. Lethal to most known forms of life." "But," he trailed off, understanding dawning on his face. "But not to us," Reyes finished. "Not to humans who evolved on a planet that bombards us with radiation daily. Signal the crystal ships. Tell them to fall back behind us. It's time to show these Void Dominion creatures what happens when you pick a fight in front of a ship crewed by Deathworlders." The Hyperion's engines roared to life, pushing the massive ship forward at accelerations that would have killed most alien species. But her human crew barely noticed. They were built for this, forged by millions of years of evolution on a world that most species would consider hell. As they moved to engage, Reyes thought about Earth, about the countless challenges that had shaped humanity into what they were. Every adaptation, every survival trait that made them Deathworlders had led to this moment. Weapons range in 30 seconds, Tanaka reported. Send a message to the Void Dominion, Rais ordered. Tell them humanity says hello. The nature of strength. The Hyperion's first volley of railgun fire cut through space like angry stars, each projectile accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The Void Dominion ships, seemingly surprised by the attack, attempted to evade, but they weren't used to fighting enemies who could calculate trajectories in high-gravity conditions. Direct hits on 3 enemy vessels, Tanaka reported, her fingers dancing across the tactical display. Their armor is regenerating, some kind of biological component for their hull structure. Science Officer Patel was already analyzing the sensor data. Confirmed. The Void Dominion ships aren't just vessels. They're living organisms, highly evolved spacefaring creatures modified for war. Through the view screen, Rais watched as one of the crystalline ships of the Harmonious Collective took advantage of their intervention, its beautiful form rotating to bring weapons to bear. The resulting light show was spectacular, but the Void Dominion's biological armor simply absorbed the energy. Commander, Hassan called out, I'm receiving a transmission from the Collective flagship. Their leader requests permission to dock. They say they don't understand how we're still alive. Rais nodded. Grant permission. Patil, meet me in docking bay 2. Tanaka, you have the bridge. Keep those organic nightmares off our backs. The walk to the docking bay gave Rais time to think. Humanity had prepared for first contact scenarios, but nothing quite like this. When the docking bay doors opened, she found herself facing beings of pure crystalline beauty. They moved like living prisms, their bodies refracting light in ways that seemed to defy physics. The translator hummed to life as the lead figure approached. I am Resonance of Truth, first speaker of the Harmonious Collective. Commander Rais, your intervention is impossible. The radiation levels in this battle alone should have killed your entire crew. Yet you not only survive but fight with remarkable precision. Patel stepped forward, his scientific curiosity evident. The radiation levels are well within human tolerance. First speaker, our homeworld exposes us to similar conditions regularly. The crystalline beings emanated patterns of light that the translator interpreted as shock. You evolved in such conditions. Voluntarily remain in them. Our sensors indicate your ship's armor is far less advanced than ours, yet you engage the Void Dominion directly. How do you survive their biological weapons? That's the thing about coming from Earth, Rais replied. When your homeworld tries to kill you in 1,000 different ways every day, you either adapt or die. We adapted. Fascinating. Resonance of Truth's light patterns shifted rapidly. Our scientists detected complex microorganisms throughout your ship's atmosphere. Are you aware of this contamination? Patil actually laughed. Those would be our microbiome, beneficial bacteria that help us survive. Earth life exists in complex symbiosis. We're not just individuals. We're walking ecosystems. The revelation seemed to stun the crystalline beings. Their light patterns became chaotic before settling into what the translator identified as intense interest. You coexist with microscopic life. Voluntarily. The Void Dominion's greatest weapon is their ability to infect and corrupt biological systems. This is why they overcome our defenses so easily. We have no natural resistance to biological warfare. Rais and Patil exchanged a look. The same thought had occurred to both of them. First speaker, Patil said carefully, would you be interested in learning about something we call the common cold? The next few hours were a crash course in human biology for the collective scientists. They learned about Earth's bacterial arms race, about immune systems forged in an evolutionary crucible, about viruses that had shaped human development for millions of years. What they saw as weapons of unimaginable horror, humans have been living with since birth. Your species, Resonance of Truth said finally, carries within it the very weapons needed to fight the Void Dominion. You are not simply survivors of a death world. You are its champions. The ship shuddered as another volley of railgun fire launched. Speaking of fighting, Rice said, those organic ships of theirs. You said they're biological systems. Yes. The Void Dominion evolved from spacefaring parasites. Their ships are living things, grown and modified for war. This is why our energy weapons are ineffective. Their biological armor adapts too quickly. Patel's eyes lit up. Commander, remember that research project from the Mars colony. The modified bacteria that eat through ship hull materials. The one that gave the safety board nightmares. How could I forget? Reyes turned to the first speaker. We may have a way to even the odds, but we'll need to work fast. Those ships out there might be living weapons, but Earth life has been waging microscopic war for billions of years. It's time they learned why humans are called Deathworlders. Above them, the battle continued to rage, but for the first time since the Void Dominion emerged from deep space, the Harmonious Collective felt something they had almost forgotten. Hope. They had sought help and found not just allies, but creatures whose very nature made them perfect weapons against their greatest enemy. Turning the tide. The laboratory aboard the TNS Hyperion had never been busier. Science Officer Raj Patel stood surrounded by floating holographic displays, each showing different strains of Earth bacteria modified to target the Void Dominion's biological ships. Beside him, several crystalline scientists from the Harmonious Collective watched in fascination as he manipulated the genetic sequences. These modified Pseudomonas bacteria, he explained, have evolved to break down complex organic compounds. We've engineered them to specifically target the unique biological structures of the Dominion ships. Commander Rice entered the lab, her uniform showing signs of the recent battle. How close are we, Patel? We've successfully modified 3 different strains. The real breakthrough came when the collective shared their detailed scans of the Dominion's whole structure. These organisms won't just eat through their ships. They'll multiply exponentially using the consumed biomass. Your casual manipulation of life itself is disturbing, one of the crystalline scientists commented, their light patterns shifting in what the translator identified as unease, yet fascinating. Reyes smiled grimly. On Earth, adaptation isn't just a survival strategy. It's an art form. Lieutenant Hassan, status of the delivery system. Hassan's voice came through the comm system. Ready, Commander. We've modified our missile warheads to carry Patel's bacterial cocktail. Each warhead contains multiple redundant dispersal systems. The Void Dominion won't expect a biological attack. Resonance of Truth added, entering the lab in a cascade of rainbow light. They believe their evolutionary advantages make them immune to such warfare. No species we've encountered has ever attempted to fight them this way. That's because no other species evolved on Earth, Rice replied. Tanaka, status of the enemy fleet. They're regrouping, Commander. Long-range sensors show they're bringing in reinforcements. Estimate 30 more vessels will arrive within 2 hours. Patel finished his calculations and looked up. Commander, I should note that once we release these bacteria, we won't be able to control their spread. They'll move through space using the Dominion's own ships as vectors. The ultimate virus, Rice mused, using their biological network against them. First speaker, are your ships ready? Resonance of Truth's crystalline form pulsed with determined light. Our fleet is in position. We've modified our energy weapons to create a containment field that should force the Dominion ships to cluster together. It won't harm them, but it will ensure maximum exposure to our bacteria, Patel finished. Elegant. Reyes moved to the lab's viewport, watching the distant shapes of the Void Dominion fleet. They were beautiful in their alien horror, their living ships pulsing with bioluminescence. Soon those same ships would become their undoing. All hands, battle stations, she ordered through the ship-wide comm. This is what we've trained for. Today we show the galaxy why you don't pick a fight with creatures who turn their planet's worst killers into allies. The plan unfolded with precision born of desperation. The collective ships moved in perfect formation, their energy weapons creating a beautiful but deadly web of containment fields. The Void Dominion ships, expecting another futile attack, found themselves herded into tight clusters. "They're taking the bait," Tanaka reported from the bridge. "Containment fields at full power. Enemy ships showing signs of confusion. They're trying to break formation but can't maintain structural integrity if they push too hard against the energy fields." "Launch bacterial missiles," Rice commanded. "All tubes, maximum dispersal pattern." The modified warheads streaked across space, their trails looking almost beautiful against the backdrop of stars. The Void Dominion, likely expecting conventional weapons, made no special effort to avoid them. That was their final mistake. The warheads detonated in silent bursts of organic mist. Through the ship's sensors, they watched as the bacteria went to work. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly but with increasing speed, patches of the Dominion ships began to lose their luster. "Bacterial infection spreading rapidly," Paddle reported, watching his instruments. "The strain is performing even better than expected. They're not just consuming the ships, they're using them as growth medium to reproduce." The Void Dominion ships began to move erratically. Their once smooth biological hulls developed patches that looked like spreading decay. Some tried to retreat, but it was too late. The bacteria had already infiltrated their internal systems. "Remarkable," Resonance of Truth observed. "Their greatest strength, their biological nature, has become their greatest vulnerability. Your Earth bacteria are devastating." Through the view screen, they watched as the mighty Void Dominion fleet began to literally fall apart. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy were being undone by microscopic life forms from a planet they would have considered too hostile to approach. Multiple enemy ships showing critical structural failures, Tanaka reported. They're trying to communicate with us." "Put it through," Rise ordered. The message that came through was unlike anything they'd heard before. A complex series of biochemical signatures translated into sound. The translator worked for a moment before rendering it into words. What is this weapon? How do you command such primitive life forms to obey you?" Rise allowed herself a small smile. "We don't command them. We evolved alongside them. This is what happens when you threaten creatures who turned their world's worst parasites into symbionts. Earth taught us that survival isn't about being the strongest. It's about adaptation." The remaining Void Dominion ships began to retreat, but they carried with them the seeds of their own destruction. The bacteria would spread through their biological network, passing from ship to ship until their entire fleet was compromised. "They'll be back," Patel warned. "They'll try to adapt." "Let them try," Rise replied. "Earth has been hosting an arms race between bacteria and their hosts for billions of years. We've got a few more tricks up our sleeves." The Harmonious collective ships moved into formation alongside the Hyperion, their crystalline forms catching and refracting starlight in celebration. They had sought help and found not just allies, but a species whose very nature made them the perfect counter to their greatest enemy. "You know," Paddle said thoughtfully, watching the retreating Dominion ships dissolve, "maybe being Deathworlders isn't such a bad thing after all." The Siege of Hope Station. The massive research station hung in space like a crystalline snowflake, its delicate spires belying its importance to the Harmonious collective. Hope Station, as the humans had dubbed it, had become the focal point of their combined efforts against the Void Dominion. But now, 3 weeks after their first biological victory, it faced its greatest test. Multiple quantum ruptures detected. Lieutenant Hassan's voice carried across the Hyperion's bridge. "Void Dominion signatures. They've adapted their biological technology. These ships, they're different." Commander Rais studied the tactical display as new enemy vessels emerged from fold space. These weren't the smooth, organic shapes they'd faced before. These ships bristled with crystalline growths, a horrifying merger of Dominion biology and something that looked disturbingly like the collective's technology. They'd been busy, Patel observed from his science station. Those crystalline structures, They're using them to shield their biological components from our bacteria. Clever bastards. Collective ships are moving to defensive positions, Tanaka reported, but the station's defenses weren't designed for this kind of assault. Reyes keyed the ship-wide comm. All hands, battle stations. This is what we've prepared for. The Dominion thinks they've evolved past our tricks. Let's show them why that's a mistake. The past 3 weeks had transformed Hope Station into a unique fusion of human and collective technology. What had started as a purely research facility now housed laboratories dedicated to understanding both humanity's biological advantages and the collective's crystal technology. Commander, resonance of Truth's voice came through the comm, their light patterns showing urgency. Our scientists have completed the integration you suggested. Are you certain about this? The physical strain. We're certain, Rise interrupted. Humanity didn't survive Earth by playing it safe. Patel, are your teams ready? Ready, Commander. Though I still think you should let me do this instead. Not a chance. I need you coordinating the science teams. Besides, she managed a grim smile. I'm the one who suggested this crazy idea. Hassan, you have the bridge. The trip to Hope Station's central chamber felt longer than usual. The station's crystal corridors pulsed with energy as its defenses activated. In the main laboratory, a team of collective scientists waited alongside Dr. Isabella Reyes, Alina's younger sister and the station's chief xenobiologist. The integration chamber is ready, Isabella said, her face showing both pride and concern. But Alina, the neural load of interfacing with collective crystals. No human has attempted this level of integration before. The Dominion adapted to our biological weapons, Alina replied, stepping into the chamber. So we adapt in return. How long until they reach weapons range? 17 minutes, Isabella checked her displays. The crystal interface is calibrated to your neural patterns. Remember, you're not just controlling the station's weapons, you're becoming part of its sensor network. The amount of data will probably feel like drinking from a fire hose. I remember the simulations. Alina watched as crystalline appendages descended from the chamber ceiling. Just promise me one thing. If this works, don't let Patel write the research paper alone. He'll never shut up about it. The integration process began with a sensation like ice spreading through her veins. The crystal technology that gave the collective their abilities was being temporarily bonded to her nervous system. Theory suggested that humans' unique neural plasticity, another gift from their demanding homeworld, would allow them to interface with the crystals in ways the collective themselves couldn't imagine. Theory, Alina decided as the first wave of sensor data hit her consciousness, hadn't quite captured how intense it would be. Suddenly, she wasn't just Commander Reyes standing in a chamber. She was Hope Station. She could feel every crystal facet, every energy conduit. The approaching Void Dominion fleet appeared not as dots on a sensor screen, but as a three-dimensional tactical display overlaid on her consciousness. Neural integration successful. Isabella's voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Station defenses are responding to your control. Alina, how does it feel? Like having eyes everywhere at once, Alina replied, her voice resonating strangely through the crystal structures. The Dominion ships, I can see their adaptations clearly now. They haven't just grown crystal armor. They've merged captured collective technology with their biological systems. Through the station's sensors, she could see the enemy fleet approaching in perfect detail. Their new crystal armor would indeed protect them from the bacterial weapons, but it had also made them rigid, less adaptable. The Void Dominion had sacrificed their greatest strength, their ability to evolve rapidly, for protection. They're not the only ones who can adapt, Alina thought, and the station responded. Crystal spires realigned, focusing energy in ways that the original designers had never imagined. Humanity's gift wasn't just their biological resilience, it was their ability to see new possibilities, to combine things in ways no one else had considered. All ships, this is Commander Reyes, she broadcast, her voice carrying through both conventional channels and crystal resonance. The Dominion thinks they've evolved beyond our reach. They forgot something fundamental about humans. We don't just adapt to survive. We adapt to win. The first Dominion ships entered weapons range, their crystalline editions glowing with stolen power. They expected to face the same defenses they'd adapted to counter. Instead, they found something new. Hope Station's crystals pulsed with energy, but not in the usual patterns. The Lena had reconfigured them based on a principle from Earth physics: constructive interference. Each crystal beam alone was harmless to their new armor, but when multiple beams converged, the results were spectacular. The first wave of Dominion ships shattered, their carefully grown crystal armor becoming their undoing. The frequency-matched beams created resonance patterns that shook their new structures apart at the molecular level. "It's working." Patel's excited voice cut through the tactical data streaming through Alina's consciousness. The crystalline sections of their ships are literally falling apart. But Alina had already moved to the next phase. As the enemy ships lost their crystal protection, she activated the station's secondary systems and released a new generation of modified bacteria, engineered specifically for this moment. Did they really think, she broadcast to the retreating Dominion ships, that we'd only try one version of our biological weapons? Earth's bacteria have been evolving for billions of years. We're quite good at helping them along. Through her enhanced perception, she watched as the new bacteria went to work on the now exposed biological sections of the enemy ships. This strain was faster, more aggressive, designed specifically to counter the adaptations they'd observed in the Dominion's biology. "Status report," she ordered, her consciousness still spread through the station's systems. "Enemy fleet is in full retreat," Tanaka reported from the Hyperion, confirming multiple critical failures in their ship structures. "Commander, we did it." Alina allowed herself a moment of satisfaction before focusing on the task of carefully disconnecting from the crystal matrix. As the interface shut down, she felt her awareness shrink back to normal human limits. Her legs buckled as the neural load subsided, but Isabella was there to catch her. "The station is secure," her sister reported, helping her to a seat. "But Alina, you realize what this means. We've just proven that humans can directly interface with collective technology." The implications, Alina finished, managing a tired smile, "are that humanity just changed the rules of space warfare. Again." She looked out the laboratory viewport at the retreating enemy ships. "Let's see how the Dominion adapts to that." Evolution's children. The observation deck of Hope Station offered a panoramic view of the final battle. Commander Alina Reyes stood beside Resonance of Truth, their unlikely alliance embodied in the mixed fleet assembled before them. Crystalline ships of the Harmonious Collective flew in formation with human vessels, their combined forces preparing for what they hoped would be the last confrontation with the Void Dominion. "Our long-range sensors detect their approach," Paddle reported from his station. "They've evolved again. These ships are unlike anything we've seen before." The Void Dominion fleet emerged from quantum space in a display that made even the seasoned crew pause. Their ships now pulsed with internal light, crystalline structures seamlessly merged with biological components. They had learned from each defeat, incorporating both organic and inorganic defenses. "They think they've solved the puzzle," Alina said, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who had spent their life adapting to challenges. "They've armored themselves against our bacteria, shielded themselves against crystal resonance. But they've missed the point entirely." "How so?" Resonance of Truth's light patterns showed curiosity. "They keep trying to become immune to our weapons, but humanity's greatest strength isn't our bacteria, or our radiation resistance, or even our ability to interface with your crystals." She turned to the first speaker. "It's our ability to see possibilities where others see limitations." The combined fleet moved into position. Every ship carried new weapons developed through the collaboration between human and collective scientists. But the real surprise waited within Hope Station itself. "All ships, this is Commander Reyes." Execute Operation Evolution. The battle began not with weapons, but with a signal. Every human ship broadcast on frequencies that seemed random to the Dominion sensors. The collective ships added their own emissions, creating a symphony of energy that rippled through space. They're responding exactly as predicted, Paddle reported. Their biological components are trying to adapt to what they think is a new weapon. Elena nodded. That's the thing about evolution. It's not always about becoming stronger. Sometimes it's about becoming something entirely different. She turned to her sister. Isabella, initiate the final phase. Deep within Hope Station, in laboratories where human ingenuity met collective wisdom, a new kind of life had been crafted. Not a weapon to destroy the Dominion ships, but something far more subtle, engineered organisms that could communicate with the living vessels themselves. Broadcasting now, Isabella confirmed. The biosignals are being carried by the energy matrix we created. Every frequency, every crystal resonance, is part of the message. Through the viewport, they watched as the Dominion fleet's aggressive advance faltered. Their ships, so focused on adapting to perceived threats, were receiving something unprecedented, communication on a cellular level. We studied their ships, Elena explained to Resonance of Truth. They're not just weapons, they're living beings, twisted and forced into shapes their evolution never intended. We're not trying to kill them. We're offering them a choice. The message encoded in the complex signals was simple but profound. An option for symbiosis rather than conflict. The engineered organisms developed in Hope Station weren't weapons but mediators, offering the Dominion's living ships a way to maintain their existence without the need for constant warfare. Multiple ships are responding, Patil announced, excitement clear in his voice. Their biological patterns are shifting. They're accepting the new organisms. Before their eyes, the Dominion fleet began to change. Ships that had been weapons of war started pulsing with new patterns of bioluminescence. The crystalline structures they had grown didn't shatter but reformed, creating something that was neither purely organic nor inorganic. Impossible, one of the collective scientists whispered. They're achieving true symbiosis with both biological and crystal technologies. The energy patterns, they're beautiful. Elena smiled. Not impossible. Just unexpected. On Earth, life found ways to thrive in every environment, from volcanic vents to radioactive pools. Cooperation and symbiosis were often more successful strategies than pure competition. The transformation spread through the Dominion fleet like a ripple of light. Ships that had been built for destruction were becoming something new, living vessels that could bridge the gap between organic and crystalline life. We're receiving a transmission, Hassan reported. It's different from their previous communications. The message that came through wasn't the harsh biochemical signatures they were used to, but a complex harmony of biological and crystal resonances. The translator worked for a moment before rendering it. We see now. We understood evolution only as a path to dominance. You showed us it could be a path to transformation. We choose to transform. Resonance of Truth's form shimmered with what the translator identified as profound emotion. When we first encountered humans, we saw them as creatures from a death world, capable only of surviving hostile conditions. We did not understand that those same conditions had taught them the most important lesson of all. That survival isn't just about being the strongest, Elena finished. It's about finding new ways to live, new ways to grow. Earth taught us that every challenge is an opportunity for change. The transformed Dominion ships began moving into new formations, no longer threatening but curious, exploring their new existence. The war that had threatened to destroy the sector had ended not with a final battle, but with an evolutionary leap that no one had expected. So Isabella said, looking at the magnificent sight before them, "What do we tell Earth about all this?" Elena watched as human ships began establishing peaceful contact with the transformed Dominion vessels, while collective scientists eagerly prepared to study this new form of life they had helped create. "We tell them the truth," she replied. That being Deathworlders gave us exactly what the galaxy needed, not just the strength to fight, but the wisdom to know when to offer peace. We tell them that evolution's greatest gift wasn't our ability to survive hostile conditions, but our ability to imagine better ones. As if to emphasize her words, a transformed Dominion ship passed close to the station, its new form a beautiful fusion of biological grace and crystalline precision. Its light patterns pulsed in a way that the translator rendered as both a greeting and a thank you. Besides, Elena added with a smile, wait until the xenobiologists back home hear that we didn't just make first contact. We helped create an entirely new form of life. That should keep them busy for the next few decades. The observation deck filled with both human laughter and the musical light patterns of collective amusement. Outside, the combined fleet began the work of establishing a new order in the sector, one based not on survival of the fittest, but on the infinite possibilities that arose when different forms of life chose to evolve together. It turned out that humanity's greatest contribution to the galaxy wasn't their strength, their resilience, or even their technological innovations. It was their ability to see beyond survival to transformation, beyond conflict to cooperation. They had taken the harsh lessons of their death world and turned them into a gift of life.